In the brightly lit winter garden, Jack stood motionless, his gaze fixed on Shannon, his wife of 4 decades. The warmth radiating from the glass walls contrasted sharply with the icy tension lingering in their conversation. "Darling," Shannon began with a measured tone, "I've decided to accept Nicholas's invitation to spend the night with him. Please try not to take it the wrong way." "So, you're really going to stay with your lover?" Jack replied, his voice laced with bitterness. Shannon, well aware of his temper, chose her words carefully, keeping her tone as steady as possible. "Nicholas isn't my lover. We simply share many common interests, and I genuinely value the time we spend together. I don't know where this path will lead or what it will ultimately mean for us, but I can't abandon him now. Jack, I know this is hard for you, but I'm asking you to accept this arrangement for what it is. It doesn't lessen how much I care about you, but Nicholas has become a significant part of my life." Jack's expression twisted in disgust. "I can only imagine what Louise would have said if she found out you and Nicholas have made me a pathetic cuckold." Shannon's frustration bubbled over, and she stamped her foot like a frustrated child. "You are not a cuckold, Jack. Not to Nicholas and not to me." "But that's exactly what I am," Jack retorted, his voice tinged with venom. "A cuckold is a man whose wife has lovers, and that's what you're turning me into, isn't it?" Shannon paused, deliberately softening her tone. "No, Jack. I don't have a lover. Nicholas is the only one, and your joke about Louise wasn't fair. She wouldn't have wanted to leave him alone, just as I won't. If the roles were reversed, I'm sure Louise would have comforted you too." Jack shrugged, skepticism etched into his features. "Somehow, I doubt Louise would play the role of another woman for me." In a flash, Shannon's hand struck his cheek, the sharp sound echoing through the room. The unexpectedness of the slap startled Jack, forcing him to take a step back. "Violence isn't going to fix anything," he said, his voice low but firm. Shannon's voice trembled, hovering on the edge of an apology, but the words remained unspoken. Instead, she responded defiantly, "I am not a whore, Jack." "And yet here you are," he countered, "ready to live with Nicholas, share a bed with him, and perhaps even more." "Maybe," she admitted. "But what I share with Nicholas doesn't erase what we've had, Jack." Her tone turned playful, carrying an undercurrent of mischief. He caught the irony in her words but wisely kept his thoughts to himself. "Don't forget to take your medicine while I'm away," she added, her voice softening unexpectedly. "Why do you care if I take my medicine?" he asked, disbelief coloring his tone. "After all, if I were gone, wouldn't that make things easier for you and Nicholas?" Shannon shook her head emphatically. "No, Jack, that's not it. I still care deeply for you and don't want to see you unwell. You're 71, and I'm 67, we need to take care of ourselves. Your blood pressure and heart medication are important." She leaned in, pressing a bittersweet kiss to his cheek before heading out. The roar of her luxury sports car shattered the stillness of the night as she drove off toward Nicholas's home, a mere 60 meters away. The distance was trivial by most standards, but in their small community, it felt significant. As Shannon navigated familiar roads, her mind drifted back to the tragic day 16 years earlier when her sister Louise's life was cut short in a workplace accident. The shock of Louise's death had thrown Nicholas into turmoil, and in those early days of grief, Shannon had stepped in to offer support. What began as compassionate visits gradually evolved into something deeper, though Shannon struggled to pinpoint when the shift occurred. One memory stood out, the day Jack discovered the truth. The confrontation had been explosive, brimming with raw emotions and accusations, only to end abruptly when Jack collapsed, clutching his chest in pain. The heart attack was a sobering prelude to his chronic heart disease. In the chaos that followed, Shannon had called for an ambulance, her heart racing as she realized the severity of the situation. The paramedics arrived with calm efficiency, stabilizing Jack's condition without uttering a word about the scandalous circumstances surrounding them. Jack was taken to the hospital, where a stent was inserted to restore his health. Despite the tension, Nicholas chose not to escalate matters legally. However, the incident left an indelible mark on all involved. Months passed, and Shannon resumed her discreet visits to Nicholas despite Jack's protests and threats of divorce. To her, it wasn't just an affair, it was a way to help Nicholas heal from his profound loss. 16 years later, Jack had come to terms with the reality of their fractured relationship, though resentment still simmered beneath the surface. On a clear morning, Shannon slipped away once again to meet Nicholas, leaving Jack alone in their sunlit greenhouse. Surrounded by the lush greenery, he faced the painful truths of their broken marriage and the secrets that had taken root in its shadows. He sighed deeply, sinking into his favorite chair, the weight of years and regrets pressing down on him as the world around him faded into a restless slumber. As the June sun climbed higher, the greenhouse transformed into an unbearable furnace. Deep in his slumber, Jack found himself wandering through an endless desert, the scorching sand stretching as far as the eye could see. However, the dream was short-lived. He awoke abruptly, feeling the oppressive heat pressing down on him. Summoning his strength, he attempted to rise but was immediately overcome by a dizzying wave, forcing him back onto the floor. The stone tiles beneath him, which should have offered a cooling reprieve, instead radiated an uncomfortable warmth, while the stifling air surrounded him like an inescapable, suffocating blanket. Desperation drove him as he began crawling toward the double doors leading to the living room, but his strength was ebbing fast. The Bluetooth pendant Shannon had gifted him for Christmas, a device meant to connect him to her phone in emergencies, mocked him now, as his desperate calls went straight to voicemail. "Help me, please," he croaked, the words barely audible as they escaped his dry lips. The phone in his jacket, lying just outside the living room, seemed tantalizingly close. Summoning his remaining energy, he inched closer to the door, his desperation propelling him forward. Out of the corner of his eye, a presence in the conservatory caught his attention. Turning his head, he saw a familiar, cheerful face. It was Louise, his late sister-in-law, her eyes sparkling with concern. "Louise?" he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, it's me," she replied, her voice soothing. "I've come for you, my dear brother-in-law." She reached out to him, spreading her arms wide in a welcoming gesture. However, as he stood to approach her, a chilling realization struck him, his lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor of the winter garden. "I'm dead, aren't I?" The thought pierced his mind. Louise nodded solemnly. "Yes, you've crossed to the other side now," she confirmed gently. "I've been granted special permission to guide you." Her gaze softened as she continued, "I'm so sorry for what Shannon and Nicholas did to you. You were right all along. I would never have betrayed your trust like Shannon did, not because I didn't find you wonderful, but because honesty matters more than any temptation." A playful grin lit up her face, briefly dispelling the gloom. Taking his hand, Louise led him on a journey beyond earthly sorrows, to a realm of peace and wonder. Meanwhile, 2 days later, Shannon drove home, anxiety gnawing at her insides. She was acutely aware of the damage done by her brief affair with Nicholas and felt an urgent need to repair her fractured relationship with Jack. "How can I make this right?" she pondered, cycling through possible gestures. Cooking his favorite meal, running a soothing bath, or simply giving him a day of care, each idea felt insufficient. Despite her remorse, she remained determined to bridge the chasm her actions had created. The memory of slapping Jack still haunted her. It was a moment of raw emotion, one she deeply regretted. Friends had once advised her to leave him, citing his flaws as justification. Yet here they were, still tethered to one another, their lives intertwined. A creeping thought nagged at her, was she guilty of holding Jack to a double standard? As she neared the house, an uneasy feeling tightened her chest. She turned her phone back on and was immediately confronted by a chilling message from Jack, "Please help me." Panic surged through her veins. Slamming her foot on the accelerator, she raced home, guilt and dread mingling with urgency. Arriving at the house, she noticed Jack's car still in the driveway, a foreboding sight. Hastily parking, she rushed inside, shouting his name with desperation. Her eyes fell on the glass doors to the conservatory, and what she saw shattered her. Jack's lifeless body lay on the cold stone tiles, his arms outstretched toward the entrance as if in a final, futile attempt to escape. The oppressive heat of 3 days in that enclosed space had left his body grotesquely altered, a haunting reminder of life's fragility. Trembling, Shannon dialed emergency services. A professional team arrived swiftly, their calm demeanor a stark contrast to her whirlwind of emotions. They worked efficiently, leaving her with the contact information of a discreet cleanup firm specializing in such tragedies. "They're the best," one of the responders assured her. "Just mention my name, Ron from the county coroner's office, and ask for Andy." Shannon retreated to the kitchen, numb with grief. Grabbing a bottle of gin, she dialed the only person she thought might understand, Nicholas. "Hello," he answered cautiously. "Nicholas, it's Shannon," she said, her voice trembling. "I just got back, and Jack, he had a heart attack. He's gone." Before Nicholas could respond, a sharp, accusing voice interrupted from his end. "Nicholas, are you seriously talking to her? That woman turned her husband into a cuckold. Hang up, now." Rage flared in Shannon. "Nicholas," she cut in, her voice rising, "did I mean nothing to you? I almost left Jack for you, and for what? To be just another notch on your belt. Tell that harpy to leave you alone." Without waiting for a response, she ended the call, the weight of finality crashing over her. Blocking his number, she felt a fleeting sense of victory. "I'm sorry, Jack," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm so sorry." Tears streamed down her face as guilt consumed her, tears for Jack, for Louise, and most of all, for herself. Because, deep down, she realized, her own selfishness had set the stage for this tragic end. Life had been cruel, yes, but hadn't she risked everything with her choices?